Hey guys, before we get into the video, if you are a developer, I have something for you for free. If you're going to be implementing Meta's conversions API directly into your code, I created a 30-page step-by-step guide that will actually explain to you how to set it up for your front end and for your back end. It'll integrate with Stripe, and not only will it work with Meta, but it'll also show you how to get set up with Google's Tag Manager, TikTok, and also another tool called Posthog. That way you can have all of your analytics set up from day one without the stress that I went through. If you want that for free, if you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description down below. And if you're watching this anywhere else, comment Meta and I will send it straight to your DMs. Now, let's get into the video. All right, hello and welcome to this training. As you can see by the title, today we're gonna be talking about setting up your Meta Pixel and making sure that your tracking is on point. That way, when you go to advertise, you have the lowest customer acquisition cost possible and you can advertise as effectively as possible. Today, we're going to be going into why this data matters, how to actually set up your events for the Pixel, how to set up the Pixel, debug it, and make sure that everything's working properly, how to set up things with the conversions API, which people tell me is the most confusing part. From here, we're also going to go over privacy, consent, and just things across the different world when it comes to data regulation. And then we'll do a review and action steps for you. That way you can actually set this up for your website. So let's get into why signals matter. What gets measured ultimately gets improved. So our goal here is to teach platforms who converts on our website and why they convert. So that when we actually go to run ads, it's as optimized as possible and Meta has as much sauce as it can to actually cook. What this gives us is cheaper customer acquisition costs. It allows you to scale more effectively, and it helps you to understand what is sucking and what's actually killing it when it comes to your ads. Now, even if you don't run paid ads, this is actually still going to be very, very important. The reason why is because if you don't know how much money you make per customer, and you actually don't know how much it costs to get that customer, you can't figure out what to change. So this is very, very important. Even if you don't run paid ads today, you may consider the idea of running paid ads in the future. And so as much data as you can possibly give to Meta, to Google, to TikTok right now, this will ultimately serve you very well in the future when you actually go to run paid ads if you ever consider the possibility. Now, the core concepts for today are events. What is an event? An event is something that somebody does on your website. Then we also want to look at params or parameters, which are details about the event. When did it happen? On what page did it happen? What button did they click? So on and so forth. Now we get to user data, which are hashed, aka, kind of fuzzied up information about your users that'll actually tell you about who they are and where they are. So this will give you information about what city or state they live in. This might give you information about what Facebook account they're tied to or the email address that they have. And these are all of the data parameters that you want to feed to Meta when you actually share information from your website. Now, the number one rule here is consistency is better than completeness. You want to make sure that you're sending over as much data as possible, sending over the full range of user details that you can to Meta for the events that matter. You don't need to track every single event because not every event matters the same way, but you do want to be tracking the core events for your website, and that's what we're going to talk about next. Now, let me show you exactly how to actually get set up with the Meta Pixel step by step. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do is go to Meta for Business. You're going to look up Meta Business Manager. Meta has like 20 different pages, so it's kind of confusing. But once you get there, you're going to go to All Tools and look for the Events Manager. This is where you can start to set up your TikTok Pixel and just get everything that you need to actually track your users that are coming into your site. Once you get here, you're probably not going to have any data yet. So first thing we're going to want to do is connect data and create a data set. This is where all the data from your tracking pixel is going to actually be captured. Now you could set it up for a website or an app. In my case, I have a website, so that's what I go ahead and do. And all you have to do at this point is just name it. Now you can see here, I have the test data set up, and now we go ahead and we go to create our pixel. And of course, you could set it up manually or you could use a partner integration. Now, if you have a website like a Shopify website or anything like that, I probably recommend going with the partner integration. But personally, I've always coded things manually, so I go with the manual code setup. It's pretty easy to do. You're going to want to turn on automatic advanced matching. That way Meta can understand if I've seen this person before, let's retarget them again. Now, when you go to set up the Meta Pixel, you're just going to want to put it into the head of your website. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and show you all the code for my website, but if you just have your website code set up, all you have to do is just ask ChatGPT and it'll know exactly where to throw it in there. The one thing I definitely recommend doing is getting the Meta Pixel Helper Google Chrome extension. This is going to allow you to actually see that your Meta Pixel is live on your website and make sure that you can actually track the events that are happening. Now, the first thing you should do once you actually get your Pixel here and you actually use the Pixel helper is do this Troubleshoot Pixel option. That'll allow you to put in your website URL. It'll take you to a specialized, version of your website where you can actually just track some of the basic events that happen on your website and make sure that they're actually being captured. So in this case, when I go there, you can see that this page view was processed, showing that our pixel is actually working. Now, Meta gives you this code for testing server events. This is actually pretty important. That way you don't actually mess up your real data. So whenever you're doing anything in a development environment, I recommend passing this data to Meta. That way it understands this isn't real data. This is actually just you testing. Okay, so at this point, we're gonna head back over to datasets and we're gonna go to add events. Now from here, you can actually add events directly from the Pixel. With the Meta Pixel helper, you'll be able to actually go directly to your website and click around on any one of the buttons or pages there and set up events. Now, the one thing that I do recommend you keep in mind is if you have dynamic buttons like I do, some of this stuff might get a little bit tricky. Also too, if all of your pricing cards have the same call to action, I've noticed Meta has a little bit of difficulty figuring out how much each of your subscriptions is actually worth because it's trying to track a button, not exactly a pricing card. So this is one of the things that you want to be a little bit careful with, but it does make it pretty easy to get set up with events. As you probably noticed, the other option that Meta is going to give you at this point is the option to use the conversions API. Now, this is very, very important. You're going to get 3 different options here. One is the partner integration, which works well if your website is already set up with something like Shopify. You're also going to get this conversions API gateway. Now, I'm not going to lie, I have no idea what the conversions API gateway does. It looks confusing. It looks expensive. I've never touched it. What I would recommend if you have a custom website and all of your custom code is to use the manual setup. This is what I did. It's a little bit complicated at first, but actually I'll share all of the code with you. That way you understand exactly how I set it up in my code base and you can do something extremely similar. Now, if you're an e-com business, what I recommend you track are page views, view content events, add to cart events, initiate checkout events, and finally purchase events. If you're in SaaS like myself, I recommend you just keep it a little bit more simple. You want to track page views. You want to track complete registration events, which are when somebody actually goes to sign up. You want to track when somebody starts their trial, if you guys ever do that. And you also want to track when they subscribe. Now, this is valuable because you want to actually capture server-side truths, which are the main important things for your website, aka payments and trials. The next thing we want to do is improve the match rate, which is basically giving Meta as much information as possible to identify a specific user with a specific action. That way, when you go to run ads, you can target them explicitly. Another issue with the front end is that people oftentimes have ad blockers in place, which can prevent you from actually capturing some of the front end events that you want to. Your server side is going to actually be able to keep these events and persist them, especially for your most important metrics. Finally, you're going to also want to stabilize reporting, and this is what your server side events are going to allow you to do. Your front end can over-report and be a little bit messy, especially if page content reloads, and this is going to allow you to survive that and actually have accurate data that isn't over-reported. Now, one of the most important concepts to understand is deduplication, which is basically if something important happens in my front end, let's say somebody goes to pay, and something important also happens in my back end, they pay, we want to combine those events and send them to Meta as separate events with the same event ID. This is going to help Meta to understand, okay, even though I have 2 separate events, these are actually the same exact event from the same person, and I just have richer data to go off of to actually have a better event match quality score. Meta is going to deduplicate this for you as long as you generate that event ID in your browser, and then you go to send it over in your server. Now, it's a lot to actually get into that in this video and explain to you exactly how to do that. So what I put together is a free PDF with an outline of all of the setup that we have in our code base, helping you to understand how you can set up Meta, as well as TikTok, as well as Google tracking. That way you can track ads and user interactions across your entire website and share it with all these platforms. All you have to do is click the link down below in the description and you'll actually be able to access this completely for free. Now let's actually get started with setting up the Conversions API. You're going to go back to your data set, click on Conversions API, and we are going to set it up manually with the Conversions API and Metapixel. Once you start your setup, you're going to click on the events that you want. In this case, I chose the Core 4 for a SaaS company. And now we're actually going to click through all of the parameters and user data that we want to send over. I personally like to send over as much information as possible, even if I don't collect it quite yet. It's always possible that I may collect it in the future, and so I like to kind of cover my bases here. Now, after doing all this, you want to review everything, and then this is where we get into the actual complicated part, which is setting up the code yourself and building all of this into your code base. If you want to skip the headache or get a huge head start, click the link down below or comment so that I can give you a full step-by-step guide of what you need to do. Once you get set up with all this stuff and you start to see events coming in, the number one thing that you're going to want to look at is Meta's event match quality score. This is going to be a score 1 through 10 that basically tells you how good Meta thinks your data is. If you're not sending over a lot of the parameters, for example, people's names, city, state, phone number, email address, Meta's going to decrease the event quality score and ask that you send over this information. That way they can do a better job of matching you to your customers. Now, granted, for some of the things you do, you're not going to have a lot of data to really send over. If someone anonymous just comes to your website and starts looking around, you probably haven't collected their email address at this point, their phone number, maybe even their name, and so you're going to have limited data to go off of. What is important though is for your high priority events, your payments, your trials, your subscriptions, that by that time you've already captured information about your user. You actually send this over to Meta at this point and have the highest event match quality score for those events, because when you go to run ads, that is what you're going to want to optimize for. You want people that are coming to your website not just to sign up, but to actually purchase and pay for your product. The last thing that I'm going to go over for today is just privacy, consent, and regions. This is one of those annoying things, but it is something that's important and could save you down the line. So what you're going to want to do here is collect only the data that you need for optimizations and for boosting up your funnel. You also want to disclose to people that you want their data and honor it if they actually want to opt out of doing it. I recommend using some sort of pre-made cookie banner. That way you don't have to worry about all the legal setup. You can just integrate that with your website. I actually use Cookie.yes. They don't sponsor this video, but they were pretty easy to get set up with. And so I actually delay capturing any advertising related data until someone has opted in to tracking this information. One of the things that I do recommend with Cookie.yes, by the way, or with any of these platforms, is just basically allowing somebody to choose yes very easily. And then if they don't want to do that, they can go in and manage the settings. I see some of these cookie banners and they have a reject all policy. I think that's actually very nice that they do that, but it's not required that you do that, and you're going to have a lot more people that opt out of tracking if you do that. So just a word of advice, make it easy for them to opt in and make it a little bit more work if they want to turn off the advertising. All right, finally we get to the review. So signals are the foundation of optimization. Basically, if you can't track it, you can't improve it. Consistency is going to be complexity. You can, maybe you should, track a lot of stuff, but there are only going to be certain things that really, really matter and really move the needle. So make sure you track those very, very well. In terms of event mapping, this is going to guide your tracking strategy. You want to understand the core parts of your funnel, build the funnel, and then from there, optimize that funnel. That way you can get as many people to your website to actually pay you. Meta's Pixel Helper is actually goated. It is a little pain in the beginning to set up, but once you actually get it, it just helps to actually confirm that things are working properly. Meta's Pixel plus their Conversions API is going to give you maximum stability. If you just rely on the front-end Pixel, you're subject to a whole lot of stuff like ad blockers, and just overall, a front end can be a little bit buggy, whereas your server is going to be the most reliable source of truth. If you combine both of these together, you're going to get the richest source of data to feed to Meta's algorithm. Deduplication is very, very important. You want to send your event IDs all the time. That way you're not over-reporting. At the end of the day, you want the most accurate information possible to make the best decisions possible. Now that Conversions API is super important, but low-key complicated. So again, if you're watching this on YouTube, click the link down below so that you can get access to the whole guide for free. If you're watching this anywhere else, comment Meta and I will send it to you in your DMs. Finally, privacy is not optional. If people want to opt out, respect it and build that into your system. That way you don't get sued later. Now, in terms of your action steps, first things first, you're going to want to define your funnel. This should be pretty straightforward. Just look at the options there Meta has for you depending on your business type and just figure out what are the most important things that someone needs to do up until they buy. Second, you're going to implement the Pixel-based code into the head of your website and use the Pixel helper to make sure that it actually works properly. Once you have your Pixel set up, now you're going to actually make sure that all of your events are set up, and then you're also going to make sure that they're firing properly. Fourth, you're going to set up the conversions API using the guide that I sent or using one of the partner integrations. That way you can track all of your server-side events. Six, you're going to want to actually test it and validate. I think it's very, very important. Sometimes I like to skip over a testing stage just because it's usually a pain to get set up to begin with. But you want to make sure that all that work doesn't go for nothing. You want to actually test it, make sure that things are working as they're intended to. Seventh, you're going to want to make sure that you're being compliant in all regions. Just enable consent management, respect it if people opt out. And finally, you're going to want to audit on a regular basis. After doing this video, actually, I realized that there are a couple events in my funnel that could be more optimized, that I could be sending better data to. So that's what I'm going to get to right now. I'll see you guys in the next video. Go make some money and follow for more.